Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The commissioner of the RCMP steps down.
My initial thought was, well, that's funny because she was holding on very tightly to that position.
So what prompted the decision and what happens next? Plus, as home sales fall to 2009 levels, a look at how many properties here are owned by investors.
It's hard for a person like me to even break in the market.
The questions being raised around who new houses are being built for, and 100 days in office for Vancouver's new mayor.
A lot of the things that we wanted to get accomplished early, we pushed through.
What transformation he wants to see.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Nearly 5 years after she assumed the RCMP's top post, Commissioner Brenda Lucki has announced she is retiring next month. The first woman to hold the title, Lucki has come under fire in the past year, facing allegations of political interference and a drop in public respect for the RCMP. Catherine Tunney takes a look at her turbulent tenure.
There were high hopes and big expectations when Brenda Lucki took over as the top Mountie, the first woman to do so permanently, tasked with modernizing the force and rooting out abuses of power. Now, in a message to her Mounties announcing her retirement, Lucki reflected on her tenure. Quote, "I don't enjoy the would have, should have, or could have game. Of course, there are things I could have done differently, but I leave knowing I did my best." And she has faced controversies.
In the last couple of days, I've honestly heard about 15 or 20 definitions of systemic racism.
In 2020, she fumbled with allegations of systemic racism in the ranks and was forced to apologize. Last year, another apology for how the RCMP responded to the mass shooting in Nova Scotia.
I want to apologize for the RCMP, but in such a way that we weren't what you expected us to be.
Lucki faced multiple calls for her resignation, accused of bending to political pressure, and for not speaking up in a cabinet meeting as the government was deciding to invoke the Emergencies Act last year.
Do you appreciate the significance of that scenario?
Yes and no.
We're not even.
This retired Mountie says Lucki wasn't always liked by those under her.
I can say anecdotally, she didn't have full support from the rank and file, and many were feeling rather hurt by the image of the RCMP that was not directly caused by Commissioner Lucki.
The timing of her decision has raised eyebrows. Within a few days, we expect a report from the Emergencies Act inquiry, and next month, one from the Commission looking into the mass shooting in Nova Scotia. In her own words, Lucki says she was conflicted about timing and didn't want to be seen as running away, but adds it was time. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, it was the worst January for home sales in the country since 2009 and the financial crisis, down 37% compared with a year ago as well. A dip in BC sales has contributed to that trend. Just over 3,000 residential units were sold last month in BC, which is down more than 50% from last year.
This is probably about the lowest we're going to see. I don't see sales staying at this level for that long. There will need to be some kind of catalyst to see, like interest rates coming down for us to see a much of an improvement. So I think we'll see sort of a steady improvement in sales month after month, and maybe in the second half things get a little bit more normal. We don't stay at these levels very long.
Home sales tumbled last year as rising mortgage rates increased the cost of borrowing for Canadians and slowed the housing market. The BC Real Estate Association expects sales to remain steady for a good portion of the year or until something changes, like a dip in interest rates. Even with the real estate market cooling, though, first-time home buyers are finding it impossible to enter the market. Nisha Patel shows us how many are having to compete with investors.
This was a very popular size with investors.
Real estate broker Varun Mathur is going through condo listings.
And we were able to close it at $564,000.
More than a third of his clients are eyeing properties for a profit.
Last few years, especially with the interest rates being very low, there was a lot of investor activity.
Recent numbers show investors own a big share of the condo market. from 36% in BC to nearly 42% in Ontario.
Investors are more qualified. They are able to make the purchase because they're financially more secure. A lot of first-time buyers lose out because of that.
Still, experts say Canada isn't building enough rental housing, and investors are helping to fill that gap.
Demand for rentals have grown over time, and that demand has been essentially served by condo investors.
But as investors scoop up property, there's less stock for potential home buyers. The trend is raising questions about attitudes towards housing.
Many everyday homeowners start to think, housing isn't just a place to call home, it is a good way to get rich.
And some say we need a better balance.
A comprehensive plan to restore housing affordability has to be organized around the principle that we need to treat housing for homes first, investment second.
With deep-pocketed investors driving up competition, young Canadians are feeling left behind.
It's hard for a person like me to even break in the market because the ones with the money are just taking over and they're buying out all these condos.
It's definitely really, really hard, and there's a lot of competition.
I just don't know if that's going to happen for me yet. So, yeah, I'm going to stay renting for a bit.
So for now, home ownership still feels out of reach. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Vancouver City Council will be voting tonight on whether to drop the fee for single-use cups. The 25-cent fee came into effect just over a year ago. The goal was to reduce waste and get more people using reusable cups. But the motion put forward by Councillor Rebecca Bly says the fees hurt low-income residents. There were also questions around whether the fee has done anything to change people's habits.
In terms of what the old city council was trying to accomplish, I think it was a fail. I think going forward, what we need to do is embrace industry, embrace the consumer, and get everybody on the same page here with some pretty simple goals.
Tostinson adds that education is key. If the motion passes tonight, the fee would be scrapped by June 1st. Well, it's been 100 days since Ken Sim was sworn in as the 41st mayor of Vancouver. And in that time, while he's pursued many of his campaign promises, he's also promised a renewed swagger for the city. We sat down with the mayor to discuss what that means and his accomplishments so far. Justin McElroy has more.
If you ask Vancouver's new mayor what he's done in his first 100 days, you'll get a straightforward answer.
A lot of the things that we wanted to get accomplished early, we've pushed through, and so that's been great.
And what it's like representing the city?
We're leaning in, and so we're going to every single event, which means it's 7 days a week, and it's great.
What about the plan to hire 100 new police officers?
We leave it up to the VPD to operationalize it, and they feel great about it.
And working with the health providers to meet the promise of hiring 100 new nurses?
The initial plan is 58 mental health workers, and they feel great about it.
Dealing with the province?
They've been great.
Vancouver is now Sim City, and sitting down with CBC News for his first in-depth interview since becoming mayor 100 days ago, it's clear Sim City is as much about policies as it is a vibe. Consider his answer on improving the Granville Strip.
It could be a great area where people, not only from Vancouver and the region, but from around the world, they come and they enjoy Vancouver, and it gives a buzz and a positive vibe to our city.
Or why he likes using the word swagger.
If we create an amazing city where there's a vibe and there's opportunity and there are places to live, people can afford to live, and they can actually have an amazing career.
Or his answer on when the city will have turned a corner on crime and safety concerns.
There's actually activity in Chinatown on a Saturday night. Now, is it where we would love it to be? Absolutely not, but there is activity. So things are changing. So we can point to stats and we will look at the metrics and we can actually, see what's happening, but it's really the feeling.
At this point, the feelings are enough. Progress is being made on 100 new cops and nurses, and the federal and provincial governments are giving money to ABC priorities like Chinatown and affordable housing.
I think the biggest pleasant surprise is how many people share the same goals and dreams, and it transcends political parties, socioeconomics, and the working relationships that we've had with the provincial and federal governments and other stakeholders. It's been great.
Of course, Vancouver isn't great for many. It is so often a tale of two cities, something the mayor acknowledged.
There are two very different realities for people who live in the city, and it's becoming more and more polarized.
Oh yeah, no, that is a very big challenge. Like there are, there's a lot of disparity in our city, and that's not the city that I want to live in. But what I feel is, the feeling before was, our city was becoming more and more divided. And what I'm feeling now is our city is coming more and more together.
It's Sim's feeling on day 100. His challenge will be seeing the transformation he wants so it stays that way on day 1,000. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
And with all of that, turns out Vancouver is not on track to hitting its climate targets. That is coming out of an update on the city's climate emergency action plan. One councillor is pointing out part of the challenge comes from funding these projects.
There were a couple big moves in the climate emergency action plan that the last council and this council unfortunately didn't approve. And so we have a gap in being able to fund the actions that we need.
Councillor Boyle says the city will have to find new revenue sources to pay for initiatives that include investments in better transportation and building infrastructure. She's calling on Mayor Ken Sim and City Council to prioritize the commitment to climate action. Almost a year after their contract expired, thousands of BC ambulance paramedics and dispatchers have said yes to a new contract with a pay raise. More than 4,500 paramedics and dispatchers voted 96% in favor of the new 3-year deal that includes wage hikes of up to 13%. A new rural and remote service delivery plan is also in the deal. Paramedics and dispatchers have been stretched very thin during the pandemic, but their union hopes new training and recruiting will help. Well, the provincial government says it's expanding the logging deferral of old-growth forests to 2.1 million hectares. The province is also introducing a $25 million 8-point forest planning table that aims to improve old-growth management. The government says it will be implementing alternatives to clear-cut logging, such as selective harvesting techniques. Well, a warning to drivers to watch out for migrating snow geese after at least 23 birds have been killed in Richmond. Mounties got a call on Monday about the dead birds who they believe were run over by a vehicle. Again today, they got a report of a large flock of the geese on the road, and when they arrived, they found 3 had been killed. They're warning that this is the time of year many migratory birds are returning, and they can easily end up on roadways, and RCMP are asking people to exercise caution. Gosh, the photos, though, those birds sure are beautiful.
I know you love birds, Anita.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And that was interesting that it is that time of the year where they start returning. I don't know about you, but I've seen a few early signs of spring. Have you noticed any?
I have a few buds on my plants. Yeah.
Yes, this is our false spring. We may have one more round in the long range, which I'll get to later on in the show. But yeah, temperature is starting to warm up as we get more daylight, and we're really getting into that spring cycle of showers, and we do have another one coming for tomorrow afternoon. This is the system bringing snow to northern coastal sections as we speak. That'll push in, bringing snow to the interior for tomorrow and showers to the south coast. I want to take you through those warnings. Winter storm warnings in effect for Kitimat and Stewart for 30 centimeters by tomorrow morning, and then it'll push into the interior up towards Highway 97, Pine Pass, Williston, and then down in through North Kootenay, Columbia, 15 to 20 centimeters really through the day tomorrow. So that's the snow story. The bottom end, it's a shower story for the south coast. And I am seeing those showers work their way across the island as we speak. These are sort of ahead of the main system, but now that I see them show up on the radar tonight, I think there is a chance we could see them earlier than some forecast models were showing. So I'm going to say be prepared for some morning showers tomorrow, but the main event won't move in until tomorrow later in the day. So here's one of the models I was sort of trusting earlier. Here's Thursday morning, 8 a.m., and you can see some showers starting to descend down on Metro Vancouver. So just be prepared that it might be showery before the steadier rain moves in tomorrow afternoon. Snow levels will be down around 1,000 meters, so we will see some fresh snow for the locals, maybe even lower than that. If we're up early, if we get those morning showers, Anita, we may see a few flakes in higher elevations. But I'll tell you more about the snow later on.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. To the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria now, more than 40,000 people are now dead, and the UN expects that number to climb. Tonight, we have a heartbreaking story from Rossland, BC, of a family mourning the loss of 28 relatives overseas in that disaster.
She is gone and she is gone.
Cheryl Forrest lives in Rossland with her 3 children. Her husband, Midrap Tash, was killed last week in Adıyaman, a city in southwestern Turkey, following catastrophic earthquakes. More than 20 members of their family also died after their 9-story apartment building collapsed.
I'm sad for everybody. I'm sick for the family. I just feel horrible. I don't know which one to mourn. You know, I'm always mourning them all.
Understandably devastated, the distance is compounding her loss. From 9,000 kilometers away, she watched over FaceTime as Tosh was buried.
Usually people come in a coffin, but there aren't enough coffins in Adıyaman because people are like getting buried in plastic bags. But he had the dignity of having the blanket that he slept in, and that was wrapped around him. And he was brought in the back of a pickup truck.
She remembers Tosh as a caring man.
He was a really loving father of all his children. He was a really kind of laid-back person, you know, chill. He always helped people. He would bend over backwards to help friends.
The couple was separated by distance, but Forrest says Tosh planned to move to Canada to be closer to his children. While they lived together in Turkey, she says Adıyaman was a community that welcomed her as a Westerner with open arms.
People were so kind. I would be struggling in those first few years to communicate something to people, and they would be thanking me for making the effort to learn their language.
And now it's Rossland rallying behind this grieving family. Forrest says she hopes to return to Turkey once it's safe.
I've told my children to process it how they need to. I think long term, no one's going to get over it. I don't know how people are going to handle it.
Forrest says there are still family members believed to be trapped under the rubble. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Rossland.
Syphilis cases are on the rise in BC, increasing by 35% in 2022 compared to the previous year. They've increased by 13-fold in the last decade, according to the BC Centre for Disease Control. They say they're also seeing changes in the population makeup of those cases. Historically, the STI has disproportionately affected men who have sex with other men, but health officials say they're seeing an increase among women and men who have sex with women. One doctor says it's difficult to pinpoint reasons, but says it could also be because more people are getting tested.
You want people to be sort of taking responsibility for their health and getting tested and having healthy sex lives and a healthy approach to their sexual health. But on the other hand, you're going to find more infection.
Grennan is advising people to look out for symptoms such as sores and rashes, but at times syphilis can show very subtle or no symptoms at all. He urges people to get screened for STIs on a regular basis. Grennan says he is helping lead a study on an antibiotic to prevent syphilis, which can be taken before or after a sexual encounter. A billboard in West Kelowna criticizing the teaching of sexual orientation and gender inclusion in schools has been taken down. The controversial billboard showed a masked character in front of a Progress Pride flag. It had a link to a website criticizing Soji 123, a learning resource offered by the province. The billboard sparked concern from LGBTQ advocates. Now, the billboard, which sits by Highway 97, is bare. The owner of the land the billboard is on, the West Bank First Nation, had asked the billboard company to remove the ad. Well, 2 people from BC are in the final round for a $25,000 grant contest for Black entrepreneurs. Our reporter Yasmin Dananea met with the founder to tell us how this grant aims to eliminate barriers.
I just point the camera at the product, and a product card comes up.
Durez Askadam is working on an app which will give people information about cannabis products.
Common usage, any possible effects that may feel, flavor profiles, THC obviously, and CBD.
He says it's important for him to be in the cannabis space, which has disproportionately criminalized Black people.
I wanted people to see that there's another side to the industry. There's another side to opportunities that could be available to people that look like me.
He's one of 2 BC finalists for the Black Pitch Contest, a nationwide competition for the Black business community. And it's an opportunity for Black entrepreneurs to grow their businesses.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Jackie Cassandi is providing the competition through her nonprofit. She says it's removing barriers for Black businesses.
In our community, one of the biggest difficulties is access to funding.
Cassandi says the Black community faces obstacles such as poor credit scores and low home ownership rates. She says these factors make it hard for people to get a bank loan to kickstart their businesses.
Collateral, you need collateral. Majority in the Black community do not have collateral, and if you don't have collateral, you can't get funded.
Askadam says his race has also prevented him from getting investments from venture capitalists.
There's very few VCs, for example, of color in the Canadian landscape. And so it makes it difficult for entrepreneurs like myself to find the networks, the contacts to be able to access these rooms.
So right here, this is a little bit of a wheatgrass trial that I have going on.
Meanwhile, in Abbotsford, Wanda Dick, a 22-year-old vertical farmer, hopes the prize money can sprout his business, which he currently runs out of a spare room in his home.
And then I do have an opportunity to grow out a barn just outside of Yarrow. Once that barn is renovated for use, that $25,000 will go straight into that barn and outfit it and essentially make setups like these, but scale it up 10 and 20-fold.
Cassandi hopes to fundraise more money in the future to help more Black entrepreneurs.
My dream is we're able to give 5 to 10 businesses a year this amount of money.
Yasmin Ghaneya, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, they say everyone loves a good book. That's especially true for Carol Jackson. Jackson has spent the past 2.5 decades finding new homes for unwanted books out of her garage in West Kelowna. That's where we found her.
So they're opened up at the date. So this one is 1882. It's just a book, but you can see how different the pages are and the lettering, the whole typeset. It can take you back to another time. I'm Carol Jackson, and I have what I call Adopt a Book. These are all books that were going to be destroyed at the recycling depot. So people just walk into the garage and take as much as they want. It started when I was at the recycling depot down on Springfield, and somebody put a bunch of books into a compactor and they pressed a button and crunched them. And that offended me so much. I went, what is going on here? And the button presser said, oh, this goes on all day, every day. So I got permission and put together a fairly large shed down at Springfield Recycling Center. And that shed was just unbelievably full of fantastic books. As I started bringing these books back, and even when I was there, people would be taking their recycling and I'd be putting all these things and loading them into my van, and they'd go, oh, look at that. And I go, yeah, look at it, take it, and so it would always be a point of excitement. These are all signed by the author. From the very word go, it was, wow, I'm going to set something up in my garage, and I had just moved into this house, and I happened to have a bunch of milk crates, so I made double door milk crates, and so it was just wall to wall. And it was so fun organizing them, and as I was doing it, people were coming down the driveway with their kids, and so it became such a lifestyle where I met friends, and it was really terrific. There's a couple of types of people. 95% will take maybe this many. But that 5% would just go nuts and just take anything and everything. They wouldn't even look at the title. It was just free. I figured, well, what the heck? I've got lots if they can use them or whatever, as long as they're not going to get destroyed. So that's how it all started 25 years ago, and there's been an awful lot of books that have come and gone, and people have been appreciating them, and just it's been a wonderful thing.
A big surge in norovirus, that highly contagious stomach bug, has public health officials worried. We'll speak with an infectious diseases specialist about what you can do to avoid it. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. A family who spent months fleeing the war in Ukraine are finally in Canada after facing visa delays and getting separated from each other while seeking safety in the UK. They are now finally settling into their new apartment in Fredericton.
So I got into the refugee camp in Poland when the baby was just 5 days old. Even though the authorities, they tried to be there as much as they could, but I mean, they were not people that I was very familiar with. I had a 5-day-old baby with me in a room that had over 20 people plus pets, plus my newborn baby, and I'm like, okay. But then I was just hoping, okay, it was going to take 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then 1 month. You know, I never had a projection that was going to take up to 5 months.
It was tough. It was very tough, my God. There were days, even as a man, that I cried. The goal was to finally be reunited as a family in the place of our dreams, in the place where we can call home.
So this place where we are, it's the UMB apartment for students. And when we got the keys and came in to see, it was empty. Like you have to bring in your own stuff. And Jenny, in 24 hours, everything you see in this place right now, when I say everything, couch, toys, table, chair, bed, beddings, like everything. So it's just like, wow, what a community. It's not just the church, it's not just the people, like everyone just, we're so united to, let's make these people comfortable.
Not only did you arrive to Fredericton, and that's a joyous moment of safety and peace in itself, but you arrived right before your birthday. Can you tell us your birthday?
Yes, my birthday is 25th December, Christmas Day, and trust me, the best gift I got was just to be with my husband and Ivan.
So we had hopes and dreams, right? Just when we started 2022, we had hoped that somehow we're making plans of relocating from Ukraine. And here we are today. We ended the year actually in Canada.
Yeah, the journey was tough, it was long, but I can say that we feel very fulfilled and so thankful.
The highly contagious norovirus is on the rise again in Canada. The Public Health Agency of Canada says cases of the nasty stomach bug are resurging across the country, including here in BC. Lauren Pelly has more.
I got it, he got it, I know that she got it, I know.
Daniela Mora Fisher and her family were hit by norovirus this year. The fast-spreading stomach bug is on the rise again after a pandemic lull. Mora Fisher's son Julian caught it first.
3 hours after, he was throwing up, he had diarrhea, and that continued up until the morning. Baby pig?
It didn't take long for his mom to get sick too.
It just spread like wildfire across my family.
People often catch it first from contaminated foods like raw shellfish or unwashed fruit. Then they shed the virus and pass it on to others.
You don't have to be exposed to very much of it at all to get an infection.
It's also tough to destroy and can linger on surfaces, causing rapid outbreaks inside places like care homes, daycares, and healthcare facilities. Once someone gets infected, symptoms like vomiting and diarrhea can be fast and furious.
You want to drink lots of fluids for sure.
This family doctor says it's important to avoid dehydration and to look for key warning signs of that in children, like exhaustion or fewer wet diapers.
If you start seeing that, especially in young kids, they need to seek medical attention, and whether that's with your primary care provider or the emergency department.
Since most people do recover at home, lab-reported cases are likely an undercount. These researchers are trying to use wastewater to spot potential outbreaks quickly.
For every one person who may be infected, there's probably 20 to 25 additional people that we don't know that are infected.
That's Lauren Pelly reporting tonight. For more on norovirus, we're joined live by infectious diseases Dr. Srinivas Murthy. Dr. Murthy, are we experiencing pre-pandemic levels of norovirus?
Well, it's not quite there yet in the United States, at least. In Canada, we don't have that level of data yet. But in the United Kingdom, they are norovirus circulation index. And so it's likely to come here.
I think you're cutting out a little bit there, but I believe you said that in the United Kingdom that they are experiencing higher levels. Once the virus gets into your home, it can spread fast, obviously, but are there any ways to actually avoid it if you're all in one household?
Not really well, unfortunately, compared to, say, COVID, for example, which has about, say, a 25% household attack rate. Norovirus has somewhere like a 30 to 35% household attack rate. And so it's unlikely you're going to protect yourself if it gets into your house, although it's possible. Remember, the solutions are hand washing with soap. Hand sanitizer does not.
Are norovirus germs more prevalent on surfaces than other illnesses like flu and COVID?
Sure. And so norovirus is typically an organism that transmits with direct contact, say hands into the actual virus itself that gets into your mouth, compared to flu and COVID-19, which typically spread more. Those surfaces are much more of a concern. So your report talked about food contamination, largely the surface of food.
Okay, and finally, why does it always seem like norovirus outbreaks become a big thing every couple months, or at least a couple times a year? I don't know, it just feels like, for me at least, that people in my life are getting it, all at once, all the time.
Yeah, it was previously known as the winter vomiting disease. It's a winter disease. And why that is complicated, but it'll come around with seasonality. And we're just seeing sort of the post-pandemic resurgence of this, which shouldn't be surprising. And hopefully folks are aware of how to.
Dr. Srinivas Murthy live with us tonight. Thank you.
Take care.
A day of chaos and confusion in Toronto City Hall as questions continue about the mayor's resignation timeline. We'll have that story and more still to come.
Hail, oh hail to Gladstone High. Our hearts are proud and true, rah-rah. Hail the school that we all love. Gladstone will strive for you, rah-rah-rah.
Things haven't really changed since last time, right? Because everything's just the same.
What do you mean last time? Like when I was a kid?
Last time, yeah, well, like before, like everything, nothing's changed. Like everything is just the same.
You won't laugh. I like to go on bicycle trips, too. Do you?
And miniature golf. Do you like that?
Yeah, and weenie roasts and square dances.
He let me down easy, and he doesn't have time. He's really busy and graduating in his career. So it just ended.
Did he give you a ring or anything like that?
No, wasn't long enough.
Through cloud and sunshine, storm and strife, our motto still shines bright.
Why do they call this a promise ring? Where does that come from?
Promise to stay together and be faithful and be honest.
And what does it mean for you?
Probably the same. Yeah, all that stuff togetherness, love.
I'll call you next week.
Will you? Well, thanks so much. I have loads of fun.
He broke up because he thought the relationship was too intense.
What about you?
I don't really know. I haven't experienced it.
No?
Like, not totally.
Our hearts are proud and true, hail the school that we all love.
Did you find true love at Gladstone High?
Myself? Not myself, but my husband did come here, but we didn't know each other at the time. But he was in another year, and later on we met, and that was true love.
And do you remember, did he give you a ring or anything like that? No? No ring?
There was gifts at Christmas and birthdays, but there was no rings or things like that.
Did he ever say the magic words to you?
I don't remember.
You don't? And I want you to tell me what true love was like when you were in high school.
I was so doggone shy, I didn't know when I was in high school.
Is it true love?
I think so, and so does she. And we're best friends practically. I'd do anything for her.
I think they have not just about love, but just about life in general. I think they have quite a romantic notion about how wonderful life's going to be.
And of course, you were very different when you were a young girl in high school, weren't you?
No.
Through cloud and sunshine, storm and strife, our model still shines bright. Down through life's way, you'll hear us say, victory for red and white.
In Toronto, the mayor is still John Tory. He has delayed formally resigning to oversee the city's budget meeting, which was held today. And as Thomas Dagla explains, it turned out to be a day of chaos and confusion.
With some supporters demanding he stay put, days after John Tory vowed to resign over an affair with a former staff member.
Trying to deal with the budget.
The embattled mayor ignored questions and defied critics by heading to a key budget meeting. But city council quickly turned to chaos as protesters booed the mayor, repeatedly disrupting the meeting until officers led them out. One demonstrator was even carried out.
We don't accept his whole resignation claim and then coming back to push his budget through.
The federal government's top Toronto MP called on Tory to follow through and quit.
That was the right thing to do, and that was the necessary thing to do.
Ontario's premier said not so fast.
It's not time to change. Everything's going tickety-boo in Toronto.
A politician who's survived defeats before, Tory served as a backroom operative during the Mulrooney years and later Ontario Progressive Conservative leader.
I'm willing to bet that when this is done, John Tory's going to disappear from Toronto for quite some time.
But his allies on council insist an affair shouldn't be enough to end a career.
Well, that's not the first time it's happened.
Does that mean it's
No, and I don't remember any other politician resigning.
That was Thomas Dagla reporting from Toronto tonight. Overseas now, where the First Minister of Scotland is stepping down. Nicola Sturgeon came to power after a failed referendum on independence in 2014. Susan Ormiston looks at her career and her reasons for leaving.
Politicians, she said, need to know when their time's up.
In my head and in my heart, I know that time is now.
She is the first woman to lead Scotland, and she survived longer than any other First Minister. In her 8 years, there were 5 British Prime Ministers. Last June with the Queen, gifting a special edition whiskey.
That must be whiskey.
Sturgeon was confident at the top. But her lifelong dream to win Scottish independence failed. A UK court ruled recently there could be no new referendum without British parliamentary approval.
The blocking of a referendum as the accepted constitutional route to independence is a democratic outrage.
She concluded someone else now needs to fight back.
A new leader will be better able to do this. No one individual should be dominant in any system for too long.
Trans rights! When do we want them? Now!
She had her battles, recently on her stance for transgender rights, and a controversy over it first jailing a trans woman rapist in a female prison. Only a few weeks ago, after New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern quit, Sturgeon told the BBC she wouldn't.
I hope I have the same courage she's had in saying, OK, this is the point to go. But just for the avoidance of all doubt, I don't feel anywhere near that right now.
But that's politics.
I think she's come to the end of her road.
And her former mentor, Alex Salmond, looked ahead.
The key litmus test is going to be whether the next leader sees the opportunity to redefine the strategy for independence.
Sturgeon has left her mark, and in leaving, she reflected politics has become much more personal and polarizing. The longer you stay, she says, the more hardened opinions become, drowning out meaningful debate. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, London.
A CBC News investigation has revealed 3 men wanted by the FBI for allegedly helping the Iranian regime are living here in Canada. All 3 are businessmen now working in the world of real estate. All 3 are facing felony charges in the U.S. They're accused of helping to disguise hundreds of millions of dollars to slip past U.S. sanctions against Iran. Ashley Burke takes us through the alleged scheme and why 2 years later, those men are still in this country.
Halil Henare promotes himself as an award-winning real estate broker. Salim Henare says he's a top private mortgage lender in Toronto, and a third man, Saeed Abtahi, is listed online as his VP. They're businessmen in Canada, but the U.S. says they're fugitives, facing felony charges for allegedly conspiring to help Iran's regime evade American sanctions.
This is a classic example of where Canada is now a safe haven.
They aren't accused of violating Canadian laws, but the U.S. alleges the men were part of a scheme for more than 15 years, disguising more than $750 million worth of transactions on behalf of Iran's regime, including using a front company to secretly buy 2 oil tankers for Tehran.
Says to me, look, they're directly linked to the Iranian regime. It says to me that they're prepared to go to a great distance to support the regime, and that, in my mind, creates a lot of red flags and should for Canada.
Could you do an interview on their behalf on camera? Lawyers for the men declined our interview requests until the case is resolved, but did give a statement saying, "Our clients are proud Canadians. They have no connection directly or indirectly with the government of Iran. The allegations in this regard are without foundation in reality." A currency exchange business that's now closed at this Toronto plaza was allegedly part of the scheme. CBC News has learned 3 other companies now operating here, not named in the indictment, are also tied to Salim Henare, including private lending firms that list Abtahi as an executive.
We need more vigorous law enforcement.
The American allegations add to fears in the Iranian-Canadian community.
The feeling generally is that, regrettably, Canada has just become all too accommodating to people that have either financial or political ties with the regime that's governing Iran at the moment.
The Prime Minister has promised Canada would not act as a safe haven for those benefiting from Iran's regime. The Conservatives say the government needs to back up words with action.
I don't think these individuals should be able to operate here in Canada in violation of U.S. sanctions. And I think that starts by ensuring that we have tools in place to shut down these kinds of operations here in Canada.
Now, neither the U.S. or Canada will say if there has been an extradition request. Those kinds of state-to-state communications would remain confidential unless it goes to court. Extradition requests can take years. Canada's Justice Department tells us there are currently no extradition proceedings tied to these men. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Newly released footage from a sunken ship that continues to grab our attention more than 100 years after it disappeared into the Atlantic.
world champs. Can I get a hell yeah?
It might be the most famous shipwreck of all time, the Titanic, and 25 years after James Cameron's Oscar-winning film chronicled its story, unreleased footage of the ship's remains are being made public. This footage is from 1986, 1 year after the sunken ocean liner was discovered. The ship sank in 1912 after hitting an iceberg during a trip from Southampton, England to New York. Out of an estimated 2,223 passengers on board, 1,500 died. Yeah, pretty cool to be able to see that footage now. And also with the 25th anniversary of the moving, everybody's talking about Titanic.
It's true. I also can't believe it's been 25 years since the movie.
No, I did work out to a My Heart Will Go On remix the other day.
That is a great workout song, Anita. I commend you on that choice. Yeah, it's a classic, rewatchable at any time, but very cool actual footage being released today. I wanted to take you through something I'm watching across the country, and that's some pretty wild temperature swings. Take a look at the current temperatures right now. We are seeing, dare I say, spring-like temperatures today in southern Ontario, southern Quebec. Right now, a 7 in through Toronto, but Toronto did hit 16 degrees today. That was a daily temperature record. But cold air is quickly moving down on the Great Lakes, so flash freeze warnings in place for parts of Ontario and Quebec. Meanwhile, central Canada, minus 16 through Winnipeg, seeing that heart of the cold air. And watch as those temperatures plummet over the next couple of days to well below the freezing mark, a good 15 to 20 degree temperature drop for parts of eastern Canada. Meanwhile, we are a touch below seasonal here on the south coast, 5 at YVR and White Rock, 5 out towards Victoria right now. We are seeing our morning temperature lows sort of around 6, 7 a.m. That's when we've been hitting those cold temperatures before we get the sun warming things back up. Tomorrow, we are looking for the showers to return, and the latest models that are coming in the past couple of hours really indicating that chance for morning showers, but the steadier rain to hold off until the evening. And look at all of that snow. So we're seeing it right now in the northwest. It's going to track over to the northeast and then down through the Kootenays. Really, you'll see the flurries start tomorrow evening for the Okanagan and out towards the Kootenays. We get a bit of a break on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, a couple more systems all lined up. But some good snow for both mountain ranges over the next 24 hours. Temperatures will remain a little on the cool side. We'll look for that clearing on Friday. It does look like they are very light showers at this point on Saturday and Sunday. Monday, hoping for some afternoon sun. And Anita, yes, these are snowflakes. I'm watching it closely. Could be a thing.
Perfect Titanic watching weather.
Exactly.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, Russia is claiming today that it had broken through 2 Ukrainian defense lines in the Luhansk region of the eastern front of the war. Ukrainian officials say the situation in the region was difficult, but denied the Russian claim. As Abby Kugudasin reports, it comes as NATO allies said they'll send more troops to Ukraine, including heavy weapons and military training.
NATO members are trying to find the balance between supplying Kyiv while also maintaining their own domestic stockpiles. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says member states are already increasing production of ammunition.
The production of, for instance, artillery shells, the 155, is now increasing, and that enables us to both replenish our own stocks, which we have depleted, but also to continue to provide support to Ukraine.
Those artillery rounds are used in howitzers, weapons Western allies have provided to Ukraine. But a major concern, how soon will Ukraine get what it needs, especially when Western officials acknowledge that a massive Russian offensive has already begun. Experts say Ukraine has a small window of time until spring or early summer to shift the dynamics on the battlefield.
There are 3 main categories of aid that we are discussing: air defense missile systems, continued 155mm ammunition, as well as tanks. And in all 3 categories, Canada has been contributing, and we are working closely with our allies to ensure that aid of all sorts continues to be put on the table for Ukraine.
Kyiv has asked for fighter jets, but that appears to be off the table for NATO. Stoltenberg has said during this summit that the priority is to deliver what's already been pledged. And British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace echoing those sentiments today and explaining fighter jets are exceptionally complex weapons which require more than just a pilot or 2.
They come with a pit crew. I mean, I compare this to a Formula One team. You know, without a pit crew, if you were gifting fighter planes, you'd probably have to gift 200 RAF personnel, and we're not going to put those people in Ukraine. And you then have to train hundreds of people in Ukraine to look after a particular type of jet.
The United Kingdom is one of Ukraine's largest military backers, and even though President Volodymyr Zelensky was here last week asking for aircrafts, it appears that's not a realistic option at this time. Abby Kugudasin, CBC News, London.
A mural in Vancouver's Punjabi market is catching people's attention. It depicts a controversial crown jewel. We'll hear from the artist behind the work after the break.
You need a handout? Okay. This business is a family-owned business. When you come into the store, you find that we have old-fashioned butchering. The price is like more than reasonable, and then you get a family feel. Thank you. Last year was a hard year for us. A lot of emotional things that went on. It just affected our community. As you can see, if you step outside, you understand why. Running a business down in this area is hard because if you walk out front, we have broken windows on top, and our car vans got broken into, vandalized inside. People try to light fires in our dumpster, and it's challenging because with all the vandalism and with all the situation that's going on with encampments and everything, for us to make money is harder, but for us to like repair the windows and the money's out of the pocket.
We do mostly soybean products. Soy milk, tofu, deep fried, mostly soybean. Before it's really, really great. Before we are working very well and everybody's come down here every weekend having dim sum. Now they're afraid. The situation here is very, very bad. So people want to stay away from them. They broke my door. I have to change the whole door because I couldn't fix it. It's hard to fix. Because it's hollow in here and I cannot fix it. It's hard to lock. We've been break in here 2 times now. 2 weeks ago and also yesterday. They break in my cashier and then they walk around and they just making a mess and they just leave. So I don't see any future here anymore. The Chinese coming down here anymore and they open any more business. If they open, they probably open somewhere else, probably not here. So Chinatown here is very sad.
The new gate is going to be down here towards the end at the intersection of Jasper and 97. The footings are already in place so that you can't see them right now. And the gate will come up and it will bridge the whole distance of the road. Chinatown, based on its location and its proximity to some of the social agencies in our community, there's a heavy population there that needs social support, and some of that population spills into Chinatown and creates some disorder. So we're working on that. And we have the Chinatown strategy, which was put together by members of the community, and we're trying to deliver on that such that it becomes a walkable community that's a destination for Edmontonians to come to and visit and do business and eat great food. We're just getting started, but it's getting better, and you should keep an open mind, and you should come out when we have festivals and events, because you're going to see a really engaged community that really likes to get together and celebrate their heritage.
Everybody here should be able to walk around without fear and just enjoy and just go shop to shop to shop. We need foot traffic, and we want to bring that back, and I'm hopeful that will happen.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
Actor, singer, and businesswoman Raquel Welch has died after a short illness. Welch became an international sex symbol in the 60s for her memorable role in a deerskin bikini in the film 1 Million Years BC. Welch was also a singer who made guest appearances like this one with Cher in 1975, and she joined tours to entertain American soldiers overseas during that period. Her dramatic roles were often panned by critics, but her comic acting earned her a Golden Globe in 1974 for her role in The Three Musketeers. Her acting career continued into the 2000s, but she became better known as a businesswoman with a popular line of wigs and hairpieces. Raquel Welch was 82. Well, a Vancouver-based artist is getting attention for a mural he painted depicting the controversial Koh-i-Noor diamond, a diamond that sits within the imperial state crown and one that Queen Consort Camilla has said she will not wear ahead of the coronation of King Charles III. The mural is located in the Punjabi market, a fitting location since it was taken from India. Follow us as we meet Jesse Sopal.
We're talking about the Koh-i-Noor diamond. It tells a story of colonialism, but also that tale of, like, the diamond was stripped from the right country. And that's just one story. That's countless other stories we don't know about. So that's what it means to me. When I got the wall, I figured I should make it contextual to where the wall was going to be. So it's behind a jewelry store, HC Jewelers. First thing that came to mind was the Koh-i-Noor diamond, the infamous diamond of India. And that's kind of where I based the story around. So in the center, we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. It's like the center, the focus. And in Punjabi, it says Koh-i-Noor. Koh-i-Noor means mountain of light in Persian. And looking away from the diamond are two Sikh men. And to me, they represent Ranjit Singh and Dalip Singh, the last two rightful owners of the diamond. And it's almost like the diamond is lost, right? They don't know where it is. They're looking away from it, kind of the idea. And in Koh-i-Noor, in English on the top as well, wanted to be a little bilingual, the mural, so people can, of all backgrounds, can look it up and see the history. Obviously, the monarchy can return the diamond back to India, be a good gesture. I'm not sure if it would kind of correct everything, but I think it would be a good gesture overall.
Gosh, I love that. I'm going to have to go check it out in person. The details are amazing. Like I said, Queen Consort Camilla won't wear the diamond on the coronation. This is actually thought to be the first time in recent history that an existing crown will be recycled for the event instead of a new crown with old jewels being made. That is it for CBC Vancouver News tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.